Imagine a watch that not only pays direct homage to 1970s Formula One racing, like many others, but an actual contemporary witness, drenched in black and gold, with a bold barrel case and chronograph movement improving on the already legendary and arguably first series produced automatic chronograph movement, all at a sub €1,000 price point. Meet a vintage special, the Seiko 6138-8039, nicknamed the John Player Special. Today we'll dive into its story, its details, and whether it might be worth a spot in your collection, right here on the Time Worn channel. Let's start with the basics. The Seiko John Player Special refers predominantly to two models from the 6138 series, either the 6138-8030 or the 6138-8039. They were produced in the mid-1970s by Seiko, using the name-giving caliber 6138 automatic chronograph movement. Most of them from 1976 like mine here. As per usual with many vintage Seikos, you can decipher the production year and month from the serial number on the back. The 8030 variant often sports a blue-black dial, but was available in this color scheme as well, whereas the 8039, like mine here, always features this black dial with gold-toned sub-registers. Why the different serial numbers for essentially the same looking watch? Not entirely clear, but it is rumored to be a topic of regionality, meaning this 8039 was supposedly aimed at the North American market, while 1830 was meant for the rest of the world. But the more distinguishing feature might be the bracelet it came on originally. From what I gathered, the 8030 John Player Special mostly came on the all-steel bracelet, while the 1839 had the Z084 bracelet with gold-colored center links and a clasp like mine here. Although, if you're very observant, you might notice that my clasp is actually two-tone, and that is just due to the fact that this bracelet was not long enough for the previous owner already. What seemed a bit unsightly at first is just a bit that no one really notices, and it makes it possible to wear this original bracelet on a bigger wrist like mine. Maybe a tip for you if you're looking at an offering with a bracelet that is just a tad bit too short for yourself. Back to the model lineup. Additionally, there was an all-gold version, but gold needs to be in very obvious air quotes with this model in general, as it is basically a tinted nickel-plated brass, which is an important bit when we're considering prices later on. In size it is about 39.5mm wide without the crown, with no lugs in the typical sense. A barrel-style case with sloping sides and strong wrist presence, meaning it's quite thick for the time, approximately 14mm, due to the height of the chronograph movement. It is also called the Baby Kakume, as it has a smaller case size than its sibling from the 6138 range. You'd expect a hardlax mineral glass crystal on there, and considering the original state, 15mm in total then, you'd be correct. But in my case, someone went ahead and added an acrylic one, which is an interesting choice, because usually only the 6138-7000, also known as the Calculator, is the only one in the entire series carrying an acrylic crystal. This adds to the height on my specific watch, but should be a little less with the original Seiko hardened mineral glass. I personally like the additional vintage vibes and soft reflections an acrylic brings to the table, but that is a matter of personal taste. Which brings me to an important topic of replacement parts and the market for these watches in general. Aftermarket parts on John Player Specials seem to be easier to identify than in the case of, for example, a Seiko Pogue, since there are not many fake or aftermarket parts manufacturers out there that jumped onto the production of complete lookalikes with this model right here. Maybe because there was not such a premium to be made in contrast to the Pogue. So the typical suspects in the case of the John Player Special are replacement parts from other 6138 model lines, which means your chronosecond might not be the original white or the subdial hands not black as they actually should be. You can compare yours to mine, which I deem original in all parts except the crystal. It's a lot more complicated with the Pogue, as you might know from my other video, when you have to identify if the subdial sunburst is subtle enough or the line in the 4 on the tachymeter bezel protrudes in just the exact amount. Anyway, that makes it a bit easier on the surface, but be wary, as this just means that there are not as many documented cases to pinpoint any fakery with the John Player Special. Let's get into what you're actually looking at when you pick up one of these. So the color scheme. You'll see a flat black dial with gold sub-registers, which carry a very subtle vertical brushing. They are also a little bit recessed into the main dial, giving some depth. Obviously a tachymeter scale on the outer rim, in line with the racing theme, a gold-toned inner chaptering, a gold-applied Seiko logo, and white markers and loomed hands for the very much surprising contrast and legibility. The movement is the 6138B caliber, and it is an automatic chronograph with 2 subdials, 12-hour counter at 12 o'clock, 30-minute counter at 6, and a day-date display, English-Spanish in my case. As mentioned previously, it is the evolution from the famous 6139 one subdial movement of the Poke, Bruce Lee or Baby Jumbo. Now the 6138 was incorporated into a plethora of watches, each with their own fan following and nickname to boot. The aforementioned Calculator and Kakume, but also the UFO, Bullhead, Jumbo or the Baby Panda, just to name a few. Back to this one. The current price range for a subjectively decent version can start at around 500 euros without the original bracelet, and can go upwards from there quickly, of course. What makes the watch more than just specs is the racing heritage it hints at. It's widely believed that the color scheme, black dial with gold sub-registers, is a nod to the livery of the all-prominent and very successful Lotus Formula One team cars, sponsored by John Player Special cigarettes in the early 1970s to mid-80s. Driven by legends like Mario Andretti, Jackie X, Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna, just to name a few in no particular order. Now, to be clear, there is no documented official partnership between Seiko and Lotus or John Player Special. It's more of a tribute or eerily matching timing for that particular color palette. That said, for motorsport fans or vintage watch enthusiasts, the black and gold aesthetic and bold case alongside a robust automatic chronograph makes for a very compelling package. Above all, it's also a great watch to get an affordable first taste of the world of two-tone watches, with a dash of sportiness and a strong wrist presence. Thank you for venturing with me into the weird and wonderful world of vintage watches. See you in the next one on the Time Worn channel.